Hey there, my name's Lewis and this is Kakou Talk, a podcast about accessibility and community brought to you by Kakou Technologies. You're listening to episode 2 with Lucie Maycock. I hope you enjoy. Okay, hello. I hope everyone tuning in had a lovely holiday season and a happy new year. We took a month's hiatus of Kakou Talk, but I'm incredibly happy to say that we're back, but not as happy as I am to introduce our guest on today's episode, the wonderful Lucie Maycock. Hello, Lucie.
Hi, how are you?
I'm fine, thank you. How are you?
I'm really good, thank you.
Good. I'm glad to have you on, actually. Ever since I started doing it, I knew I wanted to have you on pretty early on the podcast.
Oh, that's very nice.
Nice.
Very flattering.
So, Lucie, you could probably describe your work better than I ever could. So if you want to just, tell me and everyone listening a little bit about what you do.
I am a freelance and predominantly community artist, and I work in the kind of Derbyshire area. So my work spans really quite a large section of people, from young people, children, to adults and the elderly. My passion is working with young people and teenagers.
Yeah.
They're kind of where I started my journey as a community artist, and I get a lot of joy out of working with that kind of age group. So I work in a lot of different capacities. So I wear a tremendous amount of different types of hats. I deliver face-to-face work and online work. I kind of plan, evaluate, manage, and deliver various different types of community arts work, art sessions, art programs for a variety of different organisations. So everything within kind of the compass of starting a project from its kind of infancy and from scratch right to the very end to kind of writing evaluation reports. I'm involved with kind of most aspects, really.
Wow.
Nutshell. I could go on, but I'm not going to. In a nutshell, that's kind of what I do.
Yeah, because we actually we met yesterday for something regarding our kind of mutual work, and then you told me that you actually started as a youth worker, right?
I did, yeah. So,
was that before ever? I'm sorry, but was that before you ever sort of got interested in art, or did that come along after you already had the passion for it?
So I've always had a passion for art, from being very, very small, right the way through my life. I don't think I was encouraged enough. It's through no fault of anyone, but kind of with school to pursue that. I knew it was one of those things. It was a dream. I always wanted to be an artist, but
yeah.
I always felt as though people made me feel as though it wasn't really achievable. Luckily, my parents supported me through whatever I decided to pursue, and so I did choose art as my subjects after leaving school, and I did kind of veer off in different directions before I found my kind of true calling, as I call it, because it really does feel as I'm born to do this. But yeah, I started as a youth worker about 14 years ago, and it was my sister who was like, what do you want to do? I was sick of working in an office. I was doing graphic design, website design, and search engine optimization, which was really boring. And I was just like, I've been doing it for about 7 years on and off. And I thought, this is not what I want to do. This is not what I want to do with my life. And so my sister said, well, I'm a youth worker. Why don't you come and volunteer on one of the sessions that we're doing? So I started doing youth work as a volunteer role at a girls group in Brampton in Chesterfield. And from the first session, I was like, this is amazing. I love this.
Wow.
And it spiraled quite quickly from there. I was like, right, I'm going to do as much volunteering as I can. And then I applied for a job. Luckily, I got the job, and then kind of worked my way up from assistant to worker in charge to various different roles. And on that journey, I got recruited by a place called Donut Creative Art Studios, which is based in Chesterfield. And they recruited me to specifically use art as the tool to engage young people. And this is something that I've been doing in my sessions anyway. I've been using, straight away, I kind of realised I could use art as the strength of what I bring to my youth work. But luckily enough, I got employed to just do that as an arts development worker at the Donut, and I was there for 12 years. I can honestly say it was the making of me creatively and as a youth worker. The people that I got to work with and the experience that I had was incredible, and it made me into a better human being as well as a better worker. It was just great. So that's kind of where I started my journey, really.
Gosh, well, I mean, I think that you know, I've always been an advocate, and obviously, you know, at Kakou, I kind of make a point of emphasizing it on our kind of like in our digital marketing. But I think art is such a valuable and important tool for bringing people together, and that's kind of like the thing that most interests me about your work, I guess, and something that's very pertinent to what we do at Kakou, is really that your art has such a focus on like bringing people together within communities and helping you know, people without voices, and helping people who might feel as if they don't have too much going on or a lot of attention on their art and their creativity. Because I think that's a real barrier. I think more than anything, I think that's the biggest barrier between people pursuing a career as an artist, is they're told, you know, it's not financially viable, you can't even make money from this, and it kind of puts people off before they ever really start thinking about following those dreams they might have. Because I think everyone at some point has had some kind of ideation of like, oh, I'd love to be an artist, I'd love to be a painter, I'd love to be a writer, I'd love to be an actor. And I think people are very quick to sort of douse that flame, you know?
Yeah.
And I think that's, yeah, but the fact that you've managed to find this work that is helping community through arts and through creativity, and letting people know that like there are actually real benefits to this, you should do this, even if it just makes you happy, it's something that's important. And that's something I just find really noble. It's something I find really interesting in your work.
Thank you. Yeah, it's difficult with careers in the arts, and I'm a massive advocate for all the people don't realise how many jobs exist within creative industries.
Oh yeah.
And how much the creative industries in the UK is actually worth. It's a lot of money.
Incredible amount, really.
Incredible, yeah, and it is one of our strengths as a country. And I think that I'm a massive advocate when I meet young people and they're kind of maybe a little bit disengaged, not happy at school, maybe they're having trouble in their home life, and kind of just saying, you do realise that there is this thing that you can pursue, and there are so many different types of jobs within these industries that will make you really happy, and that it is doable, and to give them that power to realise that actually they can pursue their dreams and they don't have to settle. And I think that quite often in life, people teach us that we feel like we have to settle, but I don't think it's always the case. So I think it's about your state of mind. So yeah, I think I totally agree with what you just said with the creative industries and jobs within the arts. And I think that we need to act as advocates, all of us, to help these young people and to help these children find their way if that's what they want to do.
Yeah, I mean, it's like you said, though. I think that the creative industry is so broad. There's such a breadth to it. And I think that one of the most undervalued aspects of art is its use in like development for children and in therapy for people going through things. Because I think art is it's a really personal thing, you know. Any kind of self-expression you have, 9 times out of 10 it's going to be a form of art. Do you know what I mean? If you're writing, if you're painting, if you're drawing, if you're singing, if you're creating music, any kind of self-expression kind of does fall under this art. And I think that during the last 2 years especially, now I guess it has been 2 years since the start of the pandemic, really, almost, hasn't it?
Yeah.
But I think that during this period, people's mental health and their kind of sense of self-care is something that's become so important and such a talked about, for the better, definitely talked about part of this society. And I actually wanted to get your opinion, because you've been doing so much great work both before, during, and even now after lockdown in the United Kingdom. And I just wanted to, like, you know, your work, I guess it really is, in a way, it's therapy really for these people who are kind of indoors, maybe alone, maybe isolating. And yeah, I wanted to just get your thoughts on kind of art as therapy and as like a tool for mental health self-care.
Yeah, I mean, that's a really good aspect of the work, actually where my heart lies within this type of work and working with communities. And I think that using art as the tool and using art as the language to connect with people, to allow them to express their thoughts and their feelings through the medium of art. Now, this is not just, I'm not just talking visual arts and painting and that type of thing. we're talking any art form. So I mean, I predominantly work in visual arts, but I have been known to work in music sessions. I did a lot of drama in my youth work days. Creative writing and poetry, they all interconnect, and they can all be used very, very effectively to manage mental health, and to use as kind of a therapy tool. So that is something that's a theme that runs throughout all the work that I do, and I kind of take it for granted, really. But I think that you're right, with the pandemic, it's become something that people talk about a lot, and that is very, very much for the better. And I think that using art during this really tough period that we've all been going through, and stuck in our houses and stuck indoors, with sometimes very little to do. I mean, people that live alone, that were stuck in isolation, and we used art as an amazing tool during this time. So some of the sessions that I was involved in, actually for Kakou, we did online creative arts sessions. So we did everything from painting to music. We did painting with your feet, which was great fun.
I remember that. I remember being
we did lots of different types of art forms and experiments with creativity. It was a way of bringing people together. But at first I find it quite difficult, because it was a new way of working for me. I'm in the room with the person normally.
Yeah.
And I connect on that level. And I found when I first started on virtual work, I found it really hard to feel like I had a connection.
Yeah.
But over time, that kind of changed, and I've built upon being able to understand how to establish a connection with people virtually. And one of the silly things that I started doing week on week, we'd get some people that would come back to sessions, and I'd tell them we had this crazy ongoing saga in our house with a mouse. And this mouse was on the loose, and the cat was useless. She wasn't catching it. And every week I would give them an update on the mouse saga. it was that I did kind of beginning and during, and to get everybody talking and laughing. While we were doing the art was kind of distraction, but while we were doing that, it really helped to build those connections, and we started to laugh together and have those conversations and build that bond, which I think was absolutely invaluable through the time. And it felt really real as well. I think some people can think that online work can be quite, I wouldn't say fake, but not as real as when you're face to face. But actually, I am finding the more I do, the more I can understand how to build those very real connections with people.
Yeah, I suppose that's a big barrier I found, just kind of as someone who is having a lot of Zoom meetings, speaking to a lot of people over laptops, you know. I think a real barrier is the sense of like a lack of like, it can feel quite impersonal sometimes. Do you know what I mean? There's almost like the screen becomes like a physical barrier. It's almost like, well, I don't know how much I really want to like invest of myself in these sessions. I don't really know how much myself I want to show. It just feels like an obligation to these things. And I think just doing your best to foster this sense of like, no, look, we know each other. This is just, you know, we're hanging out. We're in the room. We're just not in the room. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think that's something that like really eases people in, because I think so many people have had to adapt to like video calling and stuff. And even the people who kind of already knew what they were doing, you know, obviously my generation, we FaceTime and we Skype and we Discord, and we were used to it. But in the sense of like a professional setting, or in the sense of a workshop, or in the sense of a university seminar or something, it's very weird. You're put in this very familiar situation via very sort of alien circumstances.
Yeah.
And I think kind of fostering any kind of sense of connection through that is nice. And I think that, I don't know, I mean, I must be honest, I've never actually kind of sat in on one of your online workshop sessions. I'm always sort of the person who sort of like posts stuff on socials about them and helps promote it, the stuff that Kakou is involved with. But I think that like, I would really love to, after hearing you talk about it and how fun it sounds, and how what sense of community you seem to have among the people who come to these workshops, I feel like I really want to sit in on something sometime soon, just to see this, you know?
Yeah, you're very welcome to.
Thank you.
And going back to just really quickly back to the point of how to foster that connection. Honestly, it's time. So even I, when I'm taking part in very different seminars, workshops, online courses, very often I'm disconnected. My mic's muted and my camera's off. I'm still there and I'm still learning and I'm still listening, but I'm not present. And I think the things that broke down those barriers for me was the return people, that it was time, it was that building those relationships. I don't know if that's possible on a one-off. It's very difficult.
Yeah.
So the key to that is definitely fostering that sense of connection over a period of time.
Yeah, I guess the thing is, something that's interesting about the online workshops, I know that this is something that was very heavily lent upon and talked about in the advertising and the kind of marketing for these sessions. But I think something that's really interesting, underrated about doing these workshops online via video call is actually the kind of like accessibility aspect of it. You know, and I guess when you're like on a work, when you're free to kind of work as you feel comfortable, and you're in the comfort of your own home and stuff, but you're still with these other people and you're still with a kind of session leader in yourself online. I guess this kind of breaks down a real door in accessibility, would you say? Kind of like people, if you're disabled, if you're, hard of hearing, if maybe you have learning difficulties, I guess maybe it's an environment where you can kind of be more yourself. There's less opposition to the ways in which you individually work, would you say?
I agree, absolutely. It can break down a lot of barriers. And this is something, the barriers to people accessing creative art industries is one of my bugbears, really. I think historically, there's a lot of this kind of high art that's perceived to be a very kind of middle class, oh gosh, no, I can't do that as a job, or I can't possibly go there, or because it's not my thing, it's not a working class thing. Now, I'm a working class girl. I was brought up in Chesterfield. And I think I found that a little bit, like it was a little bit out of my reach, like I wasn't really meant to be in those groups of people, because I didn't really fit with what I thought that it was. So breaking down those barriers to enable people to realize that no matter who you are and no matter what your ability or what barriers in your way, we can all access the arts, and we can all kind of experience different things, and we can find out what we like and what we don't like. And it's a really important thing for me. Definitely, when designing any of the workshops that I do, from the outset with my youth, I have to make them accessible to anybody that might turn up. They were drop-in sessions. We could have a variety of different people. So everything was kind of designed on multiple levels.
Yeah.
And I think that the art world, when we're talking about kind of big art institutions, really need to learn from that. And I know that obviously that's something that Kakou excel at.
Thank you.
About the accessibility, but I think that these larger organisations have a duty to start kind of stepping up and really making everything accessible, but accessible, not just saying, oh yeah, it's accessible, because we all know you can say it, but it doesn't necessarily mean that it is.
No.
So yeah, I think the online sessions was a great way of engaging people from all walks of life, with all different types of abilities and disabilities, and barriers to accessing creative workshops.
Yeah, I think that with accessibility, and obviously Kakou, we work, we deal very much in accessibility in the sense of like, we work very closely with foundations looking to like break down barriers for disabled people, or to make public spaces more accessible for people with disabilities, both visible and invisible. But I think a part of accessibility for everyone, not just disabled people, of course, is the opportunity to partake in everything the world has to offer. Do you know what I mean? It's like everyone deserves the chance to do what they want to do. There shouldn't be a barrier. Like you say, I mean, I couldn't agree more with your sentiment about kind of like this sort of art elitism, this sort of like middle class, slightly raised nose. Oh, well, art is this, art is that, I mean, one of my favorite artists is Keith Haring, because I really loved how for so many years he'd just take a pen and just start doing his drawings on the posters in subways. He had this real like deep intrinsic belief that like art is for everyone. Everyone should be allowed to enjoy and partake in art. And I think that the through line from that kind of thinking when we're in the 70s and the 80s, and they were moving away from this sort of like art elitism, all the way through to today, when there are so many really great workshops put on by these really great artists looking to bring people together in communities, give art to people who maybe otherwise wouldn't have had the opportunity to explore that world. It's something that I really just, I've already said this already, I sound a bit like a broken record, but I think it's such a noble thing, and it's something I really admire.
Yeah, and it is definitely getting much better. It's improving kind of year by year. Things that I see now, the amount of organisations that I'm seeing. Oh, I'm sorry, that's my telephone. I didn't put it on silent.
It's okay.
Apologies. I just noticed it was going to buzz, and it's going to make a quacking noise. So apologies for that. So yeah, it's really, I've lost my train of thought now. But give me a minute.
Okay.
It's really nice to see all these different organisations and different people all trying to make art accessible, bring art to deprived areas and people that wouldn't normally feel like they had the opportunity to take part. And I think that is growing, definitely, which is really, really positive. Yeah,
no, I agree. I think that, art truly is for everyone. There shouldn't be a barrier between anyone enjoying or partaking in art. And yeah, it's something that obviously Kakou has worked with you. I don't even know how long, longer than I've even been an employee of Kakou. I know that, it seems like a partnership that's gone back a very long time. It seems like there's a lot of history between, ourselves and you. And yeah, no, I agree. I think that the opportunities for people to be able to explore and enjoy and partake in art is a really underrated aspect of accessibility. The actual options and opportunities presented to people from certain economic or maybe racial backgrounds who maybe typically wouldn't have the chances to explore art and creativity because of this sort of like very strange and elitist attitude towards art that thankfully we seem to be moving away from with the work of people like yourself.
Yeah, I think as well, it's that unspoken thing that people are growing up in these communities and they don't feel like that they have almost the right to have access. Like we can put on all these amazing workshops and say anybody can come, but what's going to make somebody from say from a really poor area that's never really been involved in this, that might think, oh God, that's a bit flipping, I don't know, middle class or whatever. What's going to make them step out of their comfort zone and take a massive leap of confidence to go, actually, I'm going to try this. So I think we really have to be proactive in that area. I think we really have to go, actually, we're coming to you. We're going to come to your community. We're going to show you that we are real people. We care, and we've got some really cool stuff for you to take part in, and kind of take it to them, take it to these communities, work with the people, and use it as a tool for transformation. We can kind of raise people's aspirations. We can show them that life has a little bit more meaning and options than they realise. I'm really huge advocate for the power of the arts in that sense. I think as well, going into kind of ethnically diverse communities and making the effort to say, this is a project that we're going to design for your community. Rather than just say, no, it's open to all, because I don't think it goes far enough to say it's just open to all.
No.
We've got to make it something that we prioritise. And again, this is something that I probably talk about a lot, in that we really have a duty to kind of not just write down in a policy somewhere that, okay, yeah, we're going to do that. We're going to be accessible. We're going to make sure that we reach these diverse communities, and that we help people that maybe have from a low socio-economic background to kind of access. But actually, it's not far enough. We're not going far enough writing it down in a policy. We have to make part of everything we do on all our levels, and infiltrating kind of higher levels of local and national government and making sure it's on their radar and that they're taking responsibility for that. And I think that that's something myself as a practitioner, as an artist, feel really strongly that we have to help change policy too.
Yeah, no, I think that like you said, for a lot of people, there are these kind of like preconceptions that are kind of fostered over years of like the way schools might have attitudes towards art and what they might instill in young people. They're sort of like, oh, this isn't really for you, you know, even if they are trying to make it for you, it's not really a world you want to go near. And like you said, this sort of sense of diversity and inclusion, they're like, this is for you, we're making this for you. Because it's not, like you say, it's not enough just to be like, it's open for all, it's for everyone. Because the kind of unfortunate reality is for so many people from these backgrounds, for everyone usually doesn't really mean them. Do you know what I mean? There's this really baked in wariness of people who are like, it's for everyone, it's for everyone. Because I think so many people just, it's something they say, you know, diversity is a slide on a PowerPoint. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think that for projects to really make an effort to work for these people from these backgrounds, both, you know, socioeconomic and maybe in terms of their identity, is something that we need, like flat out, point blank, we need it. We really, if we want the arts to kind of survive and open themselves up to people from all walks of life truly, then it's something that we desperately kind of need in that world.
Yeah, definitely agree.
So, I mean, I've had a really nice time talking to you, but we're getting to about half an hour now. So I think we're going to start wrapping it up.
Yeah, that's fine.
But before you go, I wanted to just ask one more little question about you and your kind of personal history with art. Do you remember at all, just to bring it back a little bit and make it a little light as we close out, do you remember kind of like the first moment in your life where you really kind of had an interest in art, where you were like, this is what I want to do? Did it come before your experience with youth work with your sister, or is it something that's always been there since you were young?
It came well before. I can't really pinpoint a time, but from an early age, I liked to experiment with things. I wasn't necessarily growing up as a child or a young person that was like really amazing at art. I always thought my skill level wasn't that great growing up, but I was very experimental, and I'd like to make things and do things, and I like to make a mess. I really love the idea of process art. As an adult now, looking back, I'm like, oh God, I was so a process artist. It wasn't always product for me. It was about the journey. And I think that's why I love community art so much, because it's a tool. It's about the journey. It's not about creating the next Michelangelo. That's not what we're here to do. So yeah, taking it back, let me think. Probably school, when I was kind of primary school age. I remember we got given one task, and it was to design like a front cover. And it still sticks in my mind. And I spent hours and hours and hours doing the lettering and the designs and the drawing. And I was just like, this is amazing. I want to do this. This is something that I could do. And my parents at the time were like, actually, you can do that as a job. That is like designing covers and doing things like that is a job. And I was like, is it? Is it really? And I was quite young, so I think I was still in primary. So I was like, well, it was like a concept to me. And then I went college, uni, and kind of disappeared down the education route. Got out of uni, and it was like no one wanted to employ me because I had all these amazing qualifications, but I had no real life career experience in any of these industries. So it was quite tough to get on the kind of a foot in the door.
Yeah.
And so I ended up veering off in a direction. I mean, it was good because I learned a lot when I did the graphic design and web design and things like that. And it means that I'm quite tech savvy, even as I get a bit older, which is good. But yeah, I kind of disappeared down a route that I didn't enjoy, the kind of being office bound thing. I like working around people, and then the youth work just came along at the most perfect time, and it just fell into my lap, and it was just like, this is perfect. This is obviously meant to be.
Yeah.
So, like my journey into the arts, and I would say to anybody listening, never underestimate what you think you can achieve, because you've just got to believe in yourself, and you've just got to keep moving and keep doing, and you will get there. There will be times in your life when you'll have setbacks and things won't go to plan. But honestly, hand on heart, I think that I've got to where I want to be today because I've had self-belief, and I've just kept on moving, putting one foot in front of the other, and kept doing and doing and doing. And the more I did, the more experiences were kind of put in front of me, and then the more opportunities came along. So and always have that self-belief. Definitely, that's massively key, I think.
Yeah, well, you know what? I think that's a really great sentiment. I think that's a wonderful sort of note to end on. And I really hope that in this conversation we've had about accessibility and opportunities in art and the way it brings communities together, I hope someone listening who maybe has these ideas or wanting to try it out and explore that world, I really hope they take something away from this conversation. I hope that they find the opportunities and find it in themselves to dip their feet into that world, because I think it's such a rewarding and beneficial and beautiful one.
Yeah.
So
thank you, Lewis. Me too.
That's all. But yeah, so we've come to the end of the episode. Lucie, if there's any projects or sort of social media you want to plug right now, but please feel free.
Well, if you want to check me out online, you can go to luciemaycock.co.uk. My name's spelled a bit weird though, so it's LUCIEMAY.
Yeah, it'll be in the title of the episode.
.co.uk, and then I'm on socials. I'm on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook, Lucie Maycock Art. So you can check out any work that I do, and if you're interested, please drop me an email, get in touch. I would like to hear from you.
Well, you know, there we have it. You know, we've come to the end of the second episode of Kakou Talk. I'm still having as much fun as I did last time. I've had a really wonderful time talking to Lucie, and I hope everyone listening, I hope you had just as good a time tuning in. Anyway, from Lucie Maycock and from me, Lewis, at Kakou, see you next time.
Thank you. Bye-bye.